Hi guys, this is Scribbly again with another pen review, and today we're going to have a look at another Kaweco pen. But it's not the actual pen that we're going to have a look at in this review today. It is rather the nib, because this Kaweco DR2 here does come equipped with Kaweco's 14 karat gold nib. I have already reviewed the Kaweco DR2 on those pages here before, so I'll run through the pen itself just really quick. If you want an in-depth review about the pen, look up the older review. This here is looking at this 14 karat gold nib offering. If you order a Kaweco with a gold nib, at least that's how this pen here came in from Kaweco. You get it in a full leather box instead of like these tin boxes in which those pens typically come in. I think those tin boxes are a little bit nicer. For me personally, the faux leather looks a little bit more classy and upmarket, but it's faux leather, so that's why I find the tin box a bit cooler. You get like a nice little Kaweco sticker in here, which is pretty cool, and then you get like this small booklets. I always enjoy these vintagey Kaweco booklets, very nice, with a little bit of Kaweco history. I'll slide that through here real quickly so you can pause the video and study that for yourself. On the backhand backside something about Kaweco, and then inside sort of like an overview of their different models with filling instructions and so on. Very nice. A nice little keepsake to document some stationery history right there. Again, now let's run through the pen real quick. It's a very nice vintagey design, 1920s inspired, having some ridges here on the back side and on the top of the cap. Always reminds me also a little bit about of the Mont Blanc Rouge et Noir with those ridges right there. Same kind of 1920s inspired design. Obviously a different take on the design, but I think it's sort of the same ballpark direction where the design inspiration comes from. Then you have the very typical Kaweco clip, two rings right here, pen tapering down, coming up a little bit, tapering down again, ridge here, and then you have a Kaweco finial here on top and the same kind of thing here at the back end. That's it. Won't review the pen much more. Screw on cap, about to turn to come off. Cartridge converter filled pen. I just have a Kaweco cartridge in here that came with the pen. And then a very comfortable hourglass shaped section. Guys, that's it with the review of the pen as said, because I have reviewed the pen before, so I want to take the time to actually look at the nib. And Kaweco, as you guys know, they make their, steel nibs. This one here is a gold-plated version of their steel nibs. It's very well known from the Kaweco Sport models or Kaweco Sport models. They also have those steel nibs then non-gold plated. When they're just silver, just regular steel, don't have one installed on a pen at hand right here. And these are the nibs that most people are familiar with when it comes to all kinds of Kaweco pens. All kinds of their sport models. This is the classic sports. There's the AL Sport, brass sport, steel sport, you name it. And then there's like also all kinds of other Kaweco pens, the student, and so on. They all, most of the time, have this steel nib. What you very rarely see is Kaweco gold nibs. They're made by Bock. Since you rarely see those gold nibs, I asked Kaweco, hey, can you please send me a pen with a gold nib on, because I really wanted to try out those gold nibs and see what they're all about, and also then discuss the price and so on. So first of all, let's look at this gold nib. That's what it looks like. They do offer the gold nib in all rhodium plated or in bicolor. I got the bicolor right here, which is a very beautiful two-tone nib, right? Gold and silver. It's a 14 karat 585 gold nib. Says EF for extra fine. I asked them to send me an extra fine because I tend to use fine and extra fine nibs. Says Germany. Has the Kaweco 3-syllable imprint logo on it right here, the stamping, and some scroll work. You see that it has some tipping right here in front of it. extra fine nib as said. And then you have the regular plastic feeds that all Kawecos have, with the 3-syllable logo imprinted on the, or sort of like, you know, I don't know what technique that is, but like you have it on the bottom of the feed, which I think is a very nice little design feature. The nib came very, very nicely aligned, so great quality control here on the Kaweco nibs. We heard that they had some, on experience, that they had some problems with their nibs before. Very good quality control on that one right here. I think you can sort of see the alignment already right here with the bare eye, that it looks pretty good. And so this is a very nice nib. Let us write with this nib now and see what it can do. Zoom in a little bit more. See if it dried up now in the course of me having had it uncapped for a little while. Yes, it did. So there you have it. And then let's get writing a little bit, and I'll just write a couple of lines and then afterwards I'll talk a little bit about it. Right. So that's that Kaweco Dia 2 gold nib in extra fine. I think as you can see right here, so there is this very interesting characteristic of this nib, which sort of like does distinguish it from their steel nibs. And I think what you can see right here is like that the nib is kind of expressive. And I bring the paper a little bit closer to the camera in a second. It doesn't matter if I use cursive or if I'm printing. You do get quite some character in your writing. It's a quite expressive writing experience. It's a buttery smooth writing experience. You do get a slight bit of feedback. I don't know if you can hear it. Maybe you can. I may need to make that nib a little bit wetter. It does sometimes not come up straight away, which is a bit of a pity. Not always, most of the time it does come up straight away, but sometimes it does skip a little bit, as you have seen here. That only happens if you write with a very light touch. Now it came up straight away, and that's also showing sort of like the expressiveness of the nib. I think if you write with a pretty light touch, now this was too light, so you have to exert a little bit of pressure, then it comes up. But if you have a bit of a lighter touch, you get a very, very fine line. And then if you sort of like, and that's where the expressiveness comes from, and that also sort of like has to do with like the springiness and the bouncy nib of the gold material that we're having right here. So if you exert a little bit more pressure, you do get a thicker stroke, you do get more ink onto the page. This is very little pressure. Is a bit more pressure. This is a lot of pressure. So you see that you can get to some quite substantial line variation right here. As said, I might need to tune the nib a little bit. I might try a slightly wetter ink. The Kaweco Blue, that cartridge in here, is probably not the wettest of inks. So with no pressure, we then also don't get a lot of wetness right here, as you can see, and that was a lot of pressure, so I actually smudged from down here. So if I exert a little bit more pressure, then obviously the writing does become a little bit wetter. So having that said, let's zoom back out a little bit here. Having that said, it has a dry ink right in this pen at the moment, and the tines may be a little bit tight, and you know, that is now also a lot of personal preference. Do you like your pen a little bit drier, or do you like your pen a little bit wetter? Again, now it's coming up here perfectly. May also have to do with the angling of the pen. As said, now that was a little bit of a hard start. I angled it a little bit correctly. So maybe I need to play around with that even more and play around with different inks. Overall, it's a pretty nice writing experience, I must say. And as you can see right here, I promise that I'll bring the paper and the writing a little bit closer to the camera. You can see here in the word nib or dia, fine, right? I mean, you can see that you get quite a bit of nice expressiveness with this nib. Now, let's discuss price a little bit, because I think that's an interesting one here. So if you're looking, for instance, at this Kaweco DR2 right here, you get that pen steel nib for 78 euro. Now, at first glance, it may seem that like adding an extra fine gold nib onto this pen for another 129 euro is quite outrageous, because that would bring the pen to around 205 euro, give or take. All these prices, by the way, I looked them up at La Couronne du Comte. Only this price here I looked up at mostwantedpens.com, so if you want to reference that for yourself. So you might say this is outrageous, right? I mean, it's like, you know, the nib costs more than the pen itself, you know, the pen plus another 50 euro just for the nib, and then if you add that all up, brings you to around 205 euro. That's crazy, that's outrageous. I think this is not okay. This is what you may think, and I think, to be honest, I mean, like, I've reviewed pens for the last 5 years or so, and that was the initial thought that stroked me as well. Until I started looking into that whole thing a little bit more systematically, and I now looked up a couple of prices at La Couronne du Comte, and I looked first at a couple of gold-nibbed cartridge converter filled pens, such as this one here. And then I saw that a Sailor 1911 Standard or Pro Gear Slim costs 149 euro. A Platinum 3776, if it's not some kind of a special edition, you know, the regular Chartres Blue or Bourgogne or something like that, you get for around 180 euro. A Pilot Custom 74 sets you back 180 euro, and the Pilot Heritage 91 sets you back 145 euro. And then, you know, you could also look into the piston-filled pens, the Custom Heritage 92, for instance, which would also cost around 195 euro then, so a little bit more expensive because it's a piston filler. So if you look at that in relation, those 205 euro, they may be a little bit on the steeper end, because it's even more expensive than a Platinum 3776, and it's even more expensive than a Pilot Custom 74, all gold nib pens right here. So yes, it may be on the slightly steeper end of things, but just to put things into perspective, it doesn't seem completely outrageous. And let's look at a few competitor pricing, sort of like gold nibs. So if you have a Lamy Ion, for instance, that costs you 55 euro, a Lamy gold nib add-on does also set you back an additional 100 euro. Now the Kaweco gold nib costs 129 euro extra. That's for the two-tone. The rhodium plated one you get for 115 euro extra, so a bit closer to the 100 euro. Also here, a bit on the steeper end of what you could ask for things, but not completely outrageous. So then the Lamy Ion with a Lamy gold nib would, you know, set you back 155 euro. And last but not least, if you look at the Diplomat gold nibs, Diplomat and Excellence A2, for instance, cost 160 euros, slightly more expensive pen overall. The Diplomat gold nib to add on would then also set you back 150 euro, 15 euro, which would be the same price than the rhodium plated gold nib from Kaweco, which also goes for 115 euro or 129. Then you would end up paying for an Excellence A2 with a gold nib 275 euro. So, I mean, you know, I think the important information for us is that here. Which basically tells us Other pen manufacturers also charge €100 plus for a gold nib. And then the next bit of information that's important for us is this one here saying other gold nibbed pens with a cartridge converter also would set you back around 150 to €200. Yes, the €129 are on the steeper side of things, and yes, the €205 are on the steeper side of things. But is it a completely outrageous price to ask for this pen with that nib combination? No, I don't think so. I think it's quite okay. So I mean, if you love your Kawecos and if you really like Kaweco pens and the writing experience and their design and so on, and then I would say it may really make sense for you to bless one of your Kawecos with one of those gold nibs, because as seen, you get the pretty nice, very expressive writing experience right there. Guys, that was a bit of a lengthy video to talk just about a nib, but I mean, I've seen that there is very little video content and general content on the internet covering those Kaweco gold nibs. That's why I thought it may make sense to spend a little bit extra time on that. I hope that was helpful for you. Thanks to Kaweco for sending me this pen and nib, and I'll see you guys at the next review. Ciao, ciao.